Evening to all our viewers, both in Nigeria and outside the shores of this country. We welcome you once again to a fresh edition of your very favorite program, Democracy and Rule of Law. A program where we analyze trending issues that border on rule of law, democracy, politics, and governance. In today's edition, we'll be taking a look at two topics. One of them is a trending issue, which has been awash since last week, concerning the filing of criminal defamation against Senator Natasha Akpotodoan. We all know that the embattled senator made an interview with Channel Television, and that has culminated into what we now know as criminal defamation filed by the federal government against her. Today we'll be looking at that criminal charges. Is it in tandem with the prescriptions of the 1999 Constitution, particularly Section 39, as well as Article 9 of the African Charter of Human and People's Rights? What are the views on both sides of the Great Divide? We'll also be taking a look at the Benue massacre, the bloodletting in Benue State. We know that the killings in Benue is such that both Nigerians and non-Nigerians are worried. I understand that even Pope, the current Pope of the Catholic Church, had to send message that enough of this bloodletting. We'll look at it. We know that the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, visited Benue last week, and he made some remarks and took some steps. We want to look at those things he did, whether they are enough to curtail the bloodletting. We will go on a very short break, and when we come back, I will introduce our guest who is already seated. My name is Obiorame. Don't go away. We'll just be on a short break. We'll come back. We'll give you insight into these two topics. If you are just joining us, you are onto a favorite program, Democracy and Rule of Law. And like we mentioned earlier, I want to look at the criminal defamation charge filed against Natasha Akpotodoan. I want to say whether that criminal defamation charge against her is within the constitutional provisions of the ground norm of this country. In the studio this evening is Barrister Deju Olaleye. Barrister Deju, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, without wasting time, want to have your views on the criminal defamation filed against the embattled senator. Yeah. Do you think that looking at the antecedents, particularly her issues with the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, concerning sexual harassment and her suspension and her cry that her life was threatened, with all these things, do you think it was proper in the circumstances to go ahead and arraign her for defamation and make her to face that charges? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think to start with, it appears rather strange that the federal government will be coming up with a charge against Senator Natasha at this time. Because when one looks at the trail of events that led to the issue of this defamation, one will discover that it's a private allegation that she made against the Senate President. The allegation was that she had information and her life is under threat, that there is a plan by the Senate President and the former governor of Kogi State to assassinate her. It was an allegation that was a private allegation against the Senate President. The allegation was not in the line of duty of the Senate president. It's not an allegation against the federal government of Nigeria. Neither is it an allegation against the Senate. So one wonders, why should the federal government, I think the federal government needs an explanation to some of us who are ordinary Nigerians. Why should it be that it is the federal government that is filing a charge, a criminal charge of defamation in a private capacity against an individual who has alleged that her life is under threat?
Now, the clip concerning amendment is already on. Let's look at what transpired at the court. Yeah, you can write on.
So my contention is that the federal government has no business getting involved in this particular case of defamation, because the words, the comments, and the allegation were not directly against the federal government or against the presidency or against the state. It is purely an allegation against the senator.
Now, the embattled senator, yes, is there, you know, that we are looking at the proceedings that took place at the court, that the courts in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory High Court, in Maitama, presided over by Honorable Justice Chizoba Oji. Let's look at what happened, and thereafter we can continue. Now, welcome back. As we've just seen, the whole world has watched the proceedings where Senator Natasha was arraigned in court. And the prosecuting counsel even urged the court not to grant her bail, but to remain her in custody pending the trial. But the Honorable Justice Chizoba Oji declined the request and granted her bail in the sum of 50 million with one shorty, was a leather property in Abuja. Now, we know that she made allegations of sexual harassment. What do you think prevented the law enforcement agencies from investigating that allegation?
Well, I think the whole thing, to me, is a perfidy of justice. It is a perfidy of justice. And it's totally misplaced. And like I said, I want to associate myself with what Aisha Yusufu said in the course of the claim that has just been shown, that the federal government, and that's the point I made earlier on before that claim, that the federal government has no business whatsoever in prosecuting this particular matter. If an allegation is made by Senator Akpabio, Godswill Akpabio, to the police, it is the responsibility of the police to charge the matter to court, not the office of the Attorney General of the Federation. The office of the Attorney General preferring a charge against a civil person in a matter involving another civil person, to me, is totally misplaced justice. It's a total miscarriage of justice in the first instance. Then, secondly, the allegation that she made up till now has not been investigated. And to my mind, I think it's a diversion. Yes, it's an attempt to divert the issue that the woman raised. Of course, her life had been threatened.
Yes, that's the point I want us to look at first. She first of all made an allegation of sexual harassment.
The sexual harassment.
And that allegation is a worthy one. And she said that was what was instrumental to her seat being changed in the Senate.
In the Senate.
And then that allegation was not properly investigated by the police.
No, and again, by the National Assembly also.
And also by the National Assembly.
Yes.
And again, she also made a report that there was a plot to assassinate her.
Yes.
And that she named the persons involved in that.
She mentioned the names
of the people that were involved in that plot, the meeting they held, and the plan was that she was to be assassinated outside the confines of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, so that it would look like a mob action. She equally reported that. And to the best of my knowledge, there was no official report of any investigation to that allegation. Rather, the federal government turned around and charged her to court. Now, what do you think in the circumstances? Does that appear proper and constitutional, looking at the background of the freedom of expression and the right of someone whose life is being threatened to report?
Thank you very much. I think it's just almost the same line, that the rights of this woman is being publicly violated by the federal government. It will appear as if the conspiracy against her is even beyond the problem that she has in the Senate. It appears that the federal government, represented by the executive, is also interested in a reprimanding or a punishing decision or opinion against her for whatever reason. Now, like you have rightly observed, the allegation of sexual harassment was not investigated. It was not investigated. The IG of, she wrote some petition to the IG of police on it. It was never investigated. The question, and of course, remember the occasion when she wanted to go back to her state to meet her constituency.
Yes.
How the governor came out to impose curfew on the entire state to prevent her from going even to her constituency.
Yes.
How almost all the roads that leads to her constituency
were
blocked and blockaded by the police.
Yes.
To make sure that she does not have access to her own home,
yes,
her own house in the village, and the people that she wanted to discuss with. And how all of that was done, how she was able to avert the incident, to still hold her meeting by coming in through the air,
yes,
to protect herself from this harassment. If she had gone through the road, I'm sure that her life would have been threatened. Maybe we will not have her alive today. If she had gone through the road into Kogi State at that time.
Yes.
And we all saw what happened. How that was played out, and they could not succeed in the intimidation.
They were puzzled.
They were all overwhelmed.
Right.
So, having seen all of that.
Yes.
Having seen all of that.
Yes.
It is very, very wrong in my view that the same police, the same Senate, the same government should still be the one charging this same woman for defamation, criminal defamation.
Yes, and now let's look at it this way. She's a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because we will have probably say senator.
Yes.
Both of them are senators.
Yes.
They have equal rights.
Yes.
The issue of being the Senate president is a privilege.
Yes.
Which, is a decision of the members of the Senate.
Yes.
And the presidency of could be without at any time.
Anybody can be Senate president. Decide to do so.
Now, both of them are senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yes.
Now, will it be right in circumstances for the federal government to be behind one senator at the expense of the other senator?
Obviously,
what is your view on that?
That's why I've said that they should just withdraw this. As far as I'm concerned, if the federal government wants to protect its integrity, its impartiality, and how do I put it now? His ability to maintain order and peace, the federal government should withdraw that charge against Senator Natasha the earliest possible time, because it's shameful and disgraceful that the federal government is now supporting one senator against another senator in a matter that is private, and in a matter where she is the victim. Now, the federal government is now showing its strength on supporting the aggressor, supporting the people intimidating this woman, supporting those who perhaps were the ones threatening the life of this woman. And I think it is not good enough that the federal government should continue with this case. It's not good for the integrity of the president. It's not good for the Attorney General's office. And I want to call on my dear brother, the Attorney General, the Federal Attorney General, to immediately withdraw that charge, because it's a disgraceful charge and it's not something that the federal government should get involved in. The federal government should allow the Senate president, whatever problem that he has with Natasha, to resolve their matter on their own. And if Natasha has defamed the Senate president knows what to do. The wife of the Senate president, there are plethora of cases already in court over all the allegations from one side to the other. So it is wrong for the federal government to shield Senator Godswill Akpabio as if he has not committed any offense when there was no investigation, when no investigation has been carried out.
Yes, does it make any difference to the narrative that Senator Natasha made her views public through the television, channel television? Does it make any difference to the narrative?
Well, in my own view, it was timely that she did that, because if she had not brought it to the public domain, maybe she would not be alive today. Now, if we are to follow the allegation she made, that some people are threatening her life, and we have seen the display, the use of the police, the use of the force to prevent her from entering into that same state, to prevent her from going to her own home. So we have seen that. That's a big threat to a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
In other words, you are saying that she was a target.
Obviously, she was a target.
The state,
obviously,
and even the local government.
Obviously, she was
because of the curfews that were imposed,
obviously,
she was the movement and all that.
Obviously, she was a target.
And even somebody from the state coming to say that she allegedly committed a crime by coming to hold, that meeting with her
despite the fact that the government had imposed a curfew. How do you impose a curfew because of an individual? How do you use the instrument of a state just because of one person? You now put the entire state into curfew.
Now, what has happened? What do you think is the way to describe what has happened vis-a-vis the issue of democracy, rule of law, and fundamental freedoms, especially the right that are contained in the Constitution, especially the right to freedom of expression?
I think is a total violation of the fundamental right of this woman. And it's unfortunate that a woman is being put in this position. I think all the men that are involved should be ashamed of themselves. All the men that are involved in this perfidious justice, they should all be ashamed. And even the judge that laid that bail, she should not have done it. Because Senator Natasha is a senator of the Federal Republic of this country.
Yes,
on her self-recognizance.
Yes,
she's entitled to be allowed to go.
Yes,
on her recognizance.
Yes,
and to impose 50 million on an allegation of threat to life, threat to assassination by some group of people, to now impose 50 million on her. I think it is preposterous. It's unjustifiable.
That now takes us to
a violation of our rights.
That takes us to the next issue, and that is, what is the essence of bail in the first place? The essence of bail and requiring a surety. Is it not to ensure that the defendant appears to stand his or her trial?
Obviously.
And then looking at a person that is the subject of the arraignment, Senator Natasha, is it not enough that by her position, she should be able to stand trial? And without being subject to bringing a surety?
Obviously, in the good sense of any judge will know that she is not a villain. She is the victim of the circumstance that led to even that allegation of defamation. Now, and I think the judge was not being just to impose that 50 million. 50 million, a lot of money. On bail.
Well, it's not meant to be paid.
I know it's not supposed to be paid.
In case it refers
not supposed to be paid.
Yeah, but
I know.
But you know that the prosecuting counsel wanted the judge even to refuse bail in a case that is ordinarily bailable.
Yes.
To remain in custody.
Yes. Now,
does that appear, a tandem with the duty of prosecution?
No.
Is that not going towards persecution?
Obviously, it is an attempt to persecute this woman. And that's what they wanted. In fact, some senators told her she should pack her properties and get ready to go from court to jail. Two senators said it, even on the public domain, in one of the interviews and in a radio TV station, that she should get ready, she should pack her things so that she's definitely going to jail from there.
And which means there were intentions
to
make sure that she remanded in custody over a bailable offense.
That's what we are saying.
That still remains an allegation.
It's a violation of our rights.
And then, of course, we know that the Constitution has said that
You are
presumed innocent
until you are proven
guilty is proved by court of competent jurisdiction.
So all of this is not good for the Attorney General. And the Attorney General should be careful of the use of state instrumentation against private persons, particularly in matters that does not concern the federal government. I want to call on my good brother, Lateef Fagbemi, the Attorney General, and I appeal to his good sense of justice to immediately go ahead and withdraw that allegation. And the president too should do what is needful as a father to ensure that if two children are fighting, and as a father, two of your children are fighting, what do you do as a father? Do you put one in prison for the other person? Do you charge one to court because of the other person? I don't think the federal government, the president is silent. His silence right now on this matter is strange. And the support that the federal government is now giving to Senator Akpabio is unjustifiable also. So I think the proper thing should be done.
Now you are joining your voice with that of other Nigerians who have called on the federal government, particularly the Attorney General, to withdraw the charge.
Yes. It's a shameful thing that they are continuing with that charge. They should withdraw it with immediate effect.
And one of the human rights activists, Femi Falana, has called on the federal government to withdraw the charge. And is insisting that it's an aberration. And even a journey down the memory lane, show that in 1985, there was an allegation, a criminal defamation that was filed in Anambra State against Ato Nwankwo by the state because of publication, criticism of the governor of Anambra State at that time, Tim Nwobodo. And at the end of the day, the High Court of Anambra State convicted Ato Nwankwo and sent him to 1 year imprisonment. The Court of Appeal nullified that sentence. There's Olatawura.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, and there's Olatawura in the judgment said that Nigerians are not illiterate as believed by the colonial masters, and that the freedom that had been secured by Nigerians must not be diminished. That should there be any, act or thing done by anybody that appears to be libelious, that the person should resort to civil action, not criminal defamation. And with that in view, do you think the present government has any plans to gag Nigerians?
Yes, I want to say that if you ask me for my personal view about criminal defamation, to me, is a law that should not exist in a democratic society. It does not accord with the rule of law in any form. When, of course, there are sufficient provision under the civil actions for defamation.
Yeah.
If you feel that you have been defamed, okay, there are enough remedies for you under the civil actions for you to maintain legal action against whoever has infringed on your rights or has impugned on your reputation, as it were, or that you have been lowered in the esteem of the public or the general public, and you feel that you are aggrieved. There are enough provisions in our laws to take care of it. To now create a ground and steal that ground of criminal defamation into the criminal process is antithesis to the fundamental right to freedom, fundamental right for people to express their opinion that has been granted under the Constitution. Is inconsistent with some of the treaties already signed by Nigeria, international treaties that are for protection of human rights of persons. What constitutes criminal defamation? Even those criminal acts and the criminal laws of many of the states where you find that provision does not define what constitutes criminal defamation. There is no provision there that defines what constitutes criminal defamation sufficiently for anybody to say in a way that it will not violate the provision of the Constitution. And the truth of it is that my view is that where the provision of the criminal law of a state is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution, what does the Constitution say? Which of them will prevail?
Of course, the one that is inconsistent with the Constitution.
With the Constitution.
Yes.
So that's why the criminal defamation laws in Nigeria today are inconsistent with the provisions of our Constitution that have given rights to people to hear their views, to express opinion, to express their belief system freely.
Yes, well, Nigeria has, since independence, battled with fight for freedoms, and freedom of expression was gained at the expense of the lives of Nigerians. A lot of Nigerians sacrificed their life for Nigeria to have democratic civilian administration, not military rule. Of course, we know that during the era of the military rule, there were some decrees that were meant to gag Nigerians.
This was one of them. This particular law came in during the military regime.
Yes.
This particular criminal defamation law was stolen into our criminal law through the military regime. Yes. Just to make sure that people are comported and they do not criticize the military regimes of those years.
Yes.
But now that we are in a civilian dispensation,
yes,
those laws should be done away with. Just like the laws of sedition.
Yes. It has been said also that the beginning of dictatorship is attempt to gag the people, either individually or the press, so that people will not criticize the government in power or public officers. But one of the rights of every Nigerian or anybody in any part of the world is to express his or her honest views of the performances of the public officers. Now, do you think that this has derogated from our democratic pretensions or otherwise?
That's exactly the point that I made earlier, that what we have now is an attempt to make sure that people do not express their opinion freely. People do not criticize government by government agencies using criminal defamation, by high powerful Nigerians using criminal defamation. We saw the one that happened with Chief Afe Babalola at that time.
Yes.
You know, the use of this same law to repress and to oppress people who have something to say. You know,
but that one was
eventually settled. That was eventually settled.
Yes,
but
because Nigerians cried out.
Yes,
that it was not a best approach.
Yes,
to that matter.
Yes, particularly this criminal defamation thing, particularly where an individual is involved, it is an undue duplication of the provisions and the remedies under the civil action, where you have a right to sue for defamation. Why do you have to make it criminal? What is criminal about defamation? If I make a statement that lower you in the eyes of the members of the public, how is that a crime? They need to explain it to us. How is it a crime that I say to somebody, some people are trying to kill me. My life is under threat. And I say it, and what is the defamation there? That is criminal. What is criminal about that statement? When the police have not investigated it, nobody has gone to even invite the people to make statements. We know that I think we need to put a stop
in the law of defamation. One of the defenses is justification, and justification is that what the person has said is the truth, and that is complete defense in law. In other words, if what Natasha alleged are true, that is the end of the matter.
It's not as easy as you are looking at it, because you cannot.
What I've said is that
yes, I understand what you are saying.
It's shown that Natasha's lives were actually threatened, then if she has said it, there's no basis for any criminal charges against her.
What I'm even saying is a bit different. What I'm even saying is that law is said is perfidious. That law, that criminal defamation act or law that most of our states.
She was charged under the penal code.
Whether penal code, whether criminal code, the idea of criminal defamation between civil persons, statement made by civil persons, if the sedition laws can be shut down in this country because they are inconsistent with the right of people to express themselves freely, to criticize government, to dissent and protest, If sedition laws, what is a criminal defamation? What is criminal about any defamation? There is nothing criminal about any defamation. Yeah. If at all they feel it is criminal, then they should go to the civil court and file a suit
and ventilate their grievances.
Not to be using police to detain people, to torture people, to harass people on the ground that they defame an individual or they defame government.
Yes, as far back as 1985 in the case of Atonwakwa and the state, as we mentioned earlier, the court of appeal said that what they did, the criminal defamation, was unconstitutional.
It is unconstitutional.
Now, we're year 2025, using the 1999 constitution as a benchmark. Now, what the court declared in 1985 as unconstitutional, can it stand today?
It shouldn't even stand. We should not even be talking about criminal defamation in a democratic state.
Because is it consistent with the provision?
Provisions are obviously inconsistent. So the question of justification, whether she can prove it or not, is immaterial. Even if she cannot prove it. The issue is defamation a crime? What makes a crime? Is it mala fide? Is it mala inse? Or is it mala prohibitum? Which law? What makes it criminal? To just tag defamation, criminal defamation.
Are you telling our viewers and the world that what we have played out is an attempt to call a dog a bad name in order to hang it?
Exactly. Just to create a contraption by which they can violate people's rights. As far as I'm concerned, that is the essence of that criminal defamation laws. To create something to be able to oppress and repress Nigerians for being able to say what they want to say.
All right, we'll be going on a short break. When we come back, we'll take a look at our second topic.